Have you ever noticed how quickly people confuse being liked with being respected? You give your kindness freely, you smile, you bend to keep the peace, and yet the more you offer, the more invisible you seem. It feels like pouring water into dry sand. No matter how much you give, it disappears without leaving a mark. The world does not reward generosity with respect. It rewards strength with caution. Respect is not born in warm gestures or desperate approval. It rises in the quiet space where uncertainty lives. It is the pause before someone speaks to you, the hesitation before they cross your boundary, the unspoken knowledge that pushing too far might cost them more than they are willing to lose. That cost is not always physical. It can be dignity, opportunity, or peace of mind. But the principle remains the same. Respect comes not from comfort, but from consequence. The Stoics knew this. If you live needing to be liked, you become a servant. But if you live anchored in your own worth, you become a presence others cannot ignore. So the real question is, will you keep chasing affection, or will you learn to command respect without asking for it? Stay with me. As we step into this first chapter, imagine a figure standing at the edge of a fire. The heat is close enough to feel, yet they do not flinch. That distance, that uncertainty of what they might do, commands the crowd's attention more than any smile could. Respect does not bloom in the warmth of affection. It takes root in the shadows of hesitation, in the pause someone feels before daring to cross you. Now imagine this: a colleague ready to dismiss your ideas at a meeting. If they sense you will accept it quietly, they take the liberty. But if they feel the slightest caution, if their words must be measured before they reach you, they hesitate. That hesitation is respect. Not because you raised your voice, not because you demanded approval, but because they understand that to disrespect you might carry a cost they are unwilling to pay. The Stoics remind us, as Seneca once wrote, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. The same is true of respect. When you crave it, you lose it. When you stand without needing it, it arrives unbidden. Moving into the heart of this lesson, consider how the world conditions us from childhood to chase affection. Be agreeable, they say. Smile, bend, fit in. We live like actors playing for applause, convinced that being liked is the same as being valued. Yet the more you try to be liked, the more invisible you become. People take what is abundant for granted. And when your approval of them is too easily given, your worth is too easily dismissed. A man lost at sea may drink salt water to ease his thirst, yet it destroys him. So too with affection. It promises worth, but leaves you hollow. Here's where Stoic wisdom sharpens the edge. Respect is born not from comfort, but from consequence. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. He was not chasing the crowd. He was anchoring his worth in discipline. When you live so firmly in your own values that betrayal, rejection, or gossip cannot shake you, you become unmovable. Your silence weighs heavier than another's shout. Your calm presence unsettles more than another's rage. The room bends toward you because you no longer bend toward it. Now, imagine walking into a gathering where everyone is competing for attention. Some tell jokes, others boast, each desperate to be liked. But one person remains still. They do not rush to fill the silence. They do not flatter. They sit, watchful, patient, and slowly all eyes turn their way. Not because they begged for it, but because restraint carries a gravity that noise never can. Respect belongs to the rare who do not explain themselves. To the ones who know that silence is a shield, and detachment a crown. Advancing further, think of a boundary drawn in the sand. If you need others to like you, the tide of their opinion will wash it away again and again. But if you stand, not in anger but in clarity, the line holds. People may resent you, misunderstand you, even whisper behind you, but they will respect the strength of that line. Discipline makes respect expensive. Cheap respect, bought with flattery, dissolves in an instant. But costly respect, the kind earned through loyalty, consistency, and caution, endures. At this stage, let us return to the image of the fire. The one who stands near it does not announce their strength. They do not wave their arms or demand notice. The fire speaks for them. So it is with presence. You do not need to declare what you can do. Others sense it. They feel it in your restraint, in the way you choose when to act and when to withhold. And that sensation whispers louder than 1,000 explanations. Tread carefully. The cold truth remains. People will not respect you because they love you. They will respect you because they know that failing to do so comes at a cost. A cost they are not ready to pay. Once you embody this principle, you do not need to shout to command a room. You do not need to defend your worth. Your presence becomes your power, and your silence becomes your signal. Tread carefully, yes, but let others be the ones to tread carefully around you. That is where real power begins. Moving into this second chapter, picture a man standing at a crossroads under a heavy sky. To one side lies the familiar road, lined with applause, smiles, and the promise of belonging. To the other side stretches a solitary path, quiet and unlit, demanding courage. That is the choice each of us faces at least once in our lives, whether to live as prey, bound by the approval of others, or to rise as power, free from the need to be liked. Now imagine a prisoner who clings to his chains, not because they are strong, but because he fears the world without them. Most people live this way. They wake each morning and fasten invisible chains around their own necks. They drink in praise like a man stranded at sea, drink salt water, desperate, deceived, and slowly destroyed. Each compliment feels like life. Each rejection feels like death. Their joy belongs to others. Their pain belongs to others, and their entire existence bends to the shifting moods of the crowd. Here's where Stoic wisdom enters like a blade of clarity. Epictetus said, "If you want to be free, do not wish for things to happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do." Freedom is not found in winning affection. It is found in burning the hunger for it to ashes. The rare ones who rise, the ones who seem untouchable, are not cold. They are sovereign. They have severed the cord that tied their worth to the whispers of others. Whether embraced or rejected, their dignity does not tremble. Whether loved or despised, their power remains intact. I once knew a man who built his life around applause. At every gathering he performed, jokes, favors, endless smiles. He was liked, yes, but respected. Never. The moment he faltered, the same crowd that clapped for him turned away. His worth dissolved because it was borrowed. Contrast him with another I met years later. Quiet, reserved. He did not seek to impress. Yet when he spoke, people leaned in. When he walked into a room, silence followed. He did not chase approval, and that absence made him magnetic. His independence was not arrogance, it was mastery. Detachment is often misunderstood. It is not hatred. It is not bitterness. True detachment is a fortress built within. It is the ability to step into any room and know, with a certainty carved into your bones, that whether they love you or loathe you, you remain the same. Their affection cannot inflate you. Their rejection cannot diminish you. You exist beyond their reach. And that freedom terrifies those who would control you. They cannot guilt you. They cannot shame you. They cannot tempt you with flattery. You have slipped through their grasp, and in doing so, you have become dangerous. From here, the fog begins to clear. Once freed from the hunger for affection, you stop bending yourself into shapes that please the crowd. You stop being predictable. You stop being easy prey. Instead, you become an axis around which others must revolve. Your words weigh more because they are not cheapened by need. Your silences cut deeper because they cannot be bought. Your very presence expands, not because you demand space, but because you no longer surrender it. Think of a tree in winter, stripped bare, no blossoms, no decoration, yet it stands unbroken, rooted, immovable. That is detachment. And when spring comes, the blossoms are not begged for, they appear as a natural consequence of strength. In the same way, the one who detaches becomes a force. Independent, unshakable, purified. Detachment cleanses the soul. It clears away the noise of the crowd, leaving something harder, cleaner, enduring. Self-mastery. And self-mastery, as every Stoic knew, is the birthplace of influence. The world will try to teach you dependence. It will tempt you to beg for scraps of affection. But the path to sovereignty demands that you let that craving die. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do, that is the heart of power." So detach, not because you are heartless, but because your heart is too precious to be sold for cheap approval. Detach, not because you despise others, but because you refuse to let them define you. Detach because you are meant for something greater than being liked. You are meant to be respected. You are meant to be remembered. You are meant to be untouchable. And it all begins the moment you let go of needing them. Advancing to the third chapter, imagine entering a hall where dozens of voices compete. Laughter spills from every corner, and ambition clings to the air like smoke. Yet in the midst of all that noise, one figure steps through the door and says nothing. Still, the atmosphere shifts. Heads turn, conversations falter. No announcement, no display, only presence. This is the force that speaks louder than words, that cuts deeper than speeches, that lingers long after deeds are forgotten. Presence is not noise. It is not the frantic hunt for attention, the boasting, the endless chatter. Presence is the invisible weight that bends a room without effort. It is the energy that makes others feel your existence before you even speak. The Stoics understood this. True power is not declared, it is felt. Now picture a soldier before battle. He does not need to wave his sword wildly for the enemy to fear him. His calm stance, the steadiness of his gaze, the silence before the strike, all of it says, "I will not be moved." The warrior who holds presence is feared before he fights. Likewise, the leader who holds presence is obeyed before he commands. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." The same is true of respect. Waste no time begging for it. Be the force that cannot be ignored. When you walk into a room, the question is not, "Will they like me?" The question is, "Will they feel me?" Respect is born when others feel the weight of your certainty, the steel of your silence, the fire hidden behind a calm gaze. From here, let's return to the heart of what presence truly is. It begins with certainty. Certainty in who you are. Certainty in your value. Certainty that you do not need the approval of anyone to stand tall. When you are complete in yourself, every gesture carries authority. Every glance is a statement. Every silence is heavy with meaning. Desperation is repellent. Certainty is magnetic. The world chases those who are already whole. It ignores those still begging to be filled. I recall a gathering where one man spoke louder than all the rest, straining to impress. His laughter forced, his words scattered. People humored him, but no one truly listened. Then another man, quiet and composed, sat still at the edge. He hardly spoke, but when he did, the entire table leaned closer. His presence outweighed the noise. It was not performance, it was substance, and people respect substance. Presence is not performance, it is rootedness. It is the ability to hold your space without apology, to stand as if you are carved from stone while the crowd scrambles for attention. Not because you threaten them, but because your stillness exposes their own instability. Presence demands restraint. Speak less. Move with purpose. When you talk, let your words cut clean. When you act with precision. When you stand, let it be with the quiet defiance of someone who will not be moved. Here's where the truth sharpens. The most magnetic people are not those who rush to fill silence. They are the ones who let silence stretch, unbothered, while the world grows uncomfortable. They are the ones who remain calm while others stumble over words. They know that silence is not emptiness, it is power waiting to be noticed. Presence in this noisy age has become rare, and what is rare is respected. What is rare is desired. What is rare is remembered. Words fade, titles crumble, possessions rot, but presence can outlast them all. It is what makes kings out of men and legends out of mortals. So ask yourself, when you walk into a room, does the energy bend toward you, or do you shrink into the background, forgotten? You were not born to beg for attention. You were born to command it. And you do that not with noise, but with undeniable being. Master your presence. Master the invisible force that walks ahead of you and lingers behind you. For once you do, you will never again need to ask for respect. You will be the respect they feel, whether they like it or not. And this leads us to a darker truth. The death of power begins when you become predictable. Entering this fourth chapter, picture a hunter who moves in the forest at night. The animals do not fear the loud ones. They know how to read the rustle, the howl, the predictable sound. What terrifies them is the one they cannot hear, the shadow that may be near but cannot be tracked. That is the truth of power. Predictability kills it. Predictability is a noose you tie around your own neck. It strangles slowly, draining your influence drop by drop, until you are nothing more than a map in another man's hands. The moment others think they know your next move, they begin to set their traps. They smile as you walk right into them, blind because you have taught them your rhythm. Now imagine a game of chess. If your opponent knows your patterns, the match is over before it begins. He anticipates your defenses, prepares his counters, and positions himself to crush you at the exact moment you think you are safe. Power, like chess, thrives not in being understood, but in keeping your opponent guessing. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The secret of all victory lies in the organization of the non-obvious. Power breathes in uncertainty. When people cannot predict you, they cannot control you. When they hesitate to act because they are unsure whether you will answer with silence, with fire, or with withdrawal, they treat you with caution. And caution is the soil where respect grows." From here, reflect on the craving of the human mind. It longs for certainty. It loves routine. It clings to patterns because patterns feel safe. People want to believe they know you, that you are easy to read. But if you want to be respected, you must be dangerous to that craving. You must become the anomaly in a world addicted to the familiar. When they expect warmth, give them coldness. When they expect anger, offer silence. When they expect surrender, deliver defiance. Keep them off balance. Keep them wondering, because the moment you are unpredictable, you are untouchable. I once watched a man in a negotiation. His rival expected shouts, threats, all the typical signs of resistance. Instead, the man leaned back, smiled faintly, and said nothing. Minutes passed in silence. His rival stumbled, shifted, filled the air with excuses, and revealed weaknesses that no direct attack would have uncovered. That silence was not emptiness. It was unpredictability turned into a blade. History remembers the same pattern. The most feared figures were not always those who unleashed brute force. It was those whose responses could never be anticipated. Would they strike now or later? Would they forgive or retaliate? Would they wait in silence until the perfect moment? That uncertainty became their shield and their sword. It forced the world to treat them with reverence. To remain unpredictable is not to act without reason. It is to act with such discipline that even your chaos is calculated. It is to hold your own counsel so tightly that no one can trace the lines of your intent. Seneca once said, "The man who does not value himself cannot value anything or anyone." Predictability is often the mark of one desperate for approval. Mystery is the sign of one who has learned to belong to himself. Every time you act, ask yourself, am I becoming easy to read? If the answer is yes, change your rhythm. Break the pattern. Be willing to become a storm when they expect a breeze and a whisper when they brace for thunder. Do not reveal your full thoughts. Do not expose your steps before they are taken. Do not give others the comfort of certainty. Because in the end, power belongs not to the one who is understood, but to the one who remains a mystery. Be the riddle they cannot solve. Be the danger they cannot predict. And they will respect you, not because they love you, not because they understand you, but because they fear what you might do if they dare underestimate you. And so we turn to the next truth. In a world of endless noise, silence itself becomes the sharpest blade. Advancing into this fifth chapter, picture a crowded marketplace. Voices clash, merchants shout, promises fly into the air like sparks. In the middle of it all, one figure stands still. He says nothing. He does not wave his arms or call for attention. Yet people glance at him again and again, unsettled by his calm. In a world drowning in noise, silence itself becomes a blade. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is control. The sharpest moves are not shouted. They are made in stillness. The most devastating blows arrive without warning, without declaration. Those who understand power know it does not live in chaos, but in discipline. True power is quiet. True power is deliberate. True power is held like a sword, still in its sheath, known to be sharp without ever having to flash. Now imagine a council meeting where voices rise, accusations fly, and tempers flare. Most people scramble to prove themselves, to justify, to explain. One man does not. He listens. He observes. He waits. By the time he speaks, the others have already exposed themselves. Every weakness, every insecurity spilled out in the rush to be heard. His silence was his shield. His silence was his strategy. Epictetus said, "If you would be powerful, master yourself." Silence is mastery of self. It is the discipline to watch while others reveal their flaws. It is the patience to wait while others rush into foolishness. It is the ability to sit with anger, with fear, with joy, and betray nothing. When you are silent, you become a fortress, impenetrable from the outside, unwavering from within. From here, notice what silence does to a room. When you withhold your words, you create a void, and nature abhors a void. People scramble to fill it with chatter, with excuses, with confessions. In their desperation, they reveal far more than they intended. You reveal nothing. To be silent is to force others into discomfort, and discomfort breeds respect. I remember a man in business who thrived on this art. When challenged, he never rushed to answer. He let the silence stretch until the challenger grew uneasy and spoke again, this time less confident, often apologetic. He did not need to prove himself. His silence proved him. Those who sought to diminish him always ended up diminishing themselves. Silence is also a shield against the reckless tongue. Words, once spoken, cannot be recalled. They arm your enemies with knowledge of your fears, your ambitions, your wounds. But silence denies them that weapon. No one can strike at what they cannot see. The most feared figures in politics, war, or even within families are not those who speak most, but those who reveal least. They let others guess. They let others doubt, and doubt, fed by mystery, grows into fear. Here's where silence becomes something greater than protection. It becomes authority. When you do not rise to every argument, when you do not answer every provocation, when you refuse to explain yourself to those unworthy of understanding, your very restraint commands obedience. Your presence, your results, your unspoken control speak louder than any defense ever could. Seneca once wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Silence is delay in its purest form. It is the refusal to surrender to impulse, and that refusal builds strength. The quieter you become, the more the world leans in. The less you reveal, the more they imagine. And imagination is always more powerful than reality. Think of the warrior before a duel. He does not boast. He does not shout. His stillness terrifies more than another man's rage. It makes his opponent ask, what is he hiding? What is he planning? Why is he so calm? That wonder turns into hesitation, and hesitation becomes respect. At this stage, remember, the more you speak, the more ordinary you become. The more you withhold, the more weight your words will carry when they finally arrive. There is a gravity in restraint that no noise can match. When you master silence, you no longer chase attention. The world pays attention because it has no choice. Speak only when necessary. Move only when it matters. Let your silence prepare the ground so that when you finally act, the world does not question, does not resist, but listens. And from here, another truth emerges: scarcity, the hidden law of power. As we step into this 6th chapter, picture 2 tables. One is overflowing, food spilling from every side, yet no one values it. The other is sparse, each piece of bread treasured, each drop of wine savored. Which one leaves the greater impression? That is the law of scarcity. What is abundant is ignored. What is rare is revered. The same law rules human respect. The friend who is always available becomes invisible. The leader who explains himself constantly loses weight. The lover who pours without measure becomes ordinary. Most people think giving more will earn them respect. The truth is the opposite. The more accessible you are, the less you are valued. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." In the same way, the one who craves to be liked by all, to answer every call, to never say no, becomes impoverished in spirit. If you want respect that endures even in absence, you must treat your time, your energy, and your presence as sacred. Think of gold, diamonds, ancient relics. They are not revered because they shout. They are revered because they are rare. Apply this to yourself. When you're always there, always responding, people assume your time is cheap, your soul expendable. But when you appear only when it matters, when you withdraw into purposeful silence, longing is born, and longing breeds respect. I once knew a man who never refused anyone. He was liked, even used, but never respected. Another man, disciplined and measured, rarely gave his time. A single word from him carried more weight than 100 speeches from the first. Why? Scarcity. People adjusted themselves around him because they knew he was not easily reached. Scarcity forces others to qualify themselves to you. They ask, "Am I worthy of this person's time?" They hesitate before wasting your hours. They think twice before crossing your boundaries. They know access is not a right, it is a privilege. From here, the discipline is clear. Learn to say no without apology. Withdraw without explanation. Cultivate an aura that says, "I choose when and where I appear." And if you are careless, you lose me. This is not arrogance. It is protection of value in a world that will drain you if allowed. In every realm, love, business, leadership, scarcity multiplies worth. The one slightly out of reach commands more respect than the one always in hand. A presence that is rare makes a deeper mark than one constantly on display. Scarcity also feeds mystery. When people cannot have you, they imagine you. They project value. They wonder what you're doing, who you are with, what thoughts move behind your calm. And imagination always magnifies importance. You do not need to vanish to create scarcity. You create it by being selective, by speaking only when your words matter, by appearing only when presence adds weight, by making each engagement feel like an event, not a routine. People are drawn to what they cannot easily possess. They crave what is withheld. They chase what is unattainable. When you master scarcity, you become both. But understand, scarcity is not a trick. It is not a game. It is the realization that your time, your energy, your spirit are sacred. And sacred things are not tossed into the street. You were never meant to be common. You were meant to be rare. To enter a room and shift the atmosphere, not by asking for attention, but by the quiet force of your rarity. The law is simple. The less they can have you, the more they will respect you. The rarer your presence, the greater your value. And those wise enough to see it will treat you accordingly. From here, we sharpen the final truth. Respect is not found in being liked. It lives in being needed. Entering this 7th chapter, imagine two figures standing side by side. One smiles broadly, agrees with everything, bends easily to win approval. The other stands firm, silent, unmoved, carrying a weight that cannot be ignored. Which one is respected? Which one is remembered? Respect is never the reward for being nice. It belongs to the one who is needed. In every room, in every bond, in every struggle for influence, the most respected person is not the most liked. It is the most indispensable. From childhood we are taught to please, to fit in, to soften our edges so we can be accepted. But hidden under this lesson is a harder truth. People like what they can control. They respect what they cannot replace. To be liked is to be pleasant. To be needed is to be essential. One can be forgotten overnight. The other carves itself into memory. The more you beg for affection, the more you trade away your sharpness. Until one day you are no longer seen as iron, but as clay, shaped by anyone's hand. But when you focus on being needed, everything changes. When your presence solves problems, when your absence creates a void, when your craft, your vision, your discipline elevate the space around you, people have no choice but to respect you. They may not always like you, but they will measure themselves by you. Seneca once wrote, "It is a rough road that leads to the heights of greatness. To become needed, you must take that road." In business, it means mastering your work so deeply that the system strains without you. In friendship, it means upholding standards that others can lean on, not emotionally in weakness, but functionally in strength. In life, it means being the one who brings value wherever you go. Not comfort, not flattery, value. I once worked with a man who was liked by everyone. He smiled constantly, bent over backward to keep the peace. But when decisions came, no one turned to him. He was pleasant but unnecessary. Later I met another man, sharp, precise, sometimes even feared. He was not liked by all, but when he was absent, the entire team felt it. His absence was a wound. His presence was indispensable. That is the difference. At this stage, we must draw the line clearly. A room does not shift because you are liked. It shifts because without you, it cannot stand the same. That is necessity. Necessity is born from focus, from discipline, from purpose. It is the fruit of knowing your worth and refusing to dilute it for applause. Being liked is temporary. People like what flatters them, what entertains them, what comforts them, but their liking is fickle. The moment something shinier arrives, they forget you. Being needed endures. It creates loyalty. It breeds caution. It commands respect. Because deep down, everyone knows, if they lose you, they lose something they cannot replace. Withdraw from the hunger for applause. Let your edges cut clean. Let your presence be rare, and let necessity, not affection, define your worth. Respect will follow, whether they like you or not. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In the same way, waste no more time begging for respect. Become someone the world cannot ignore. The lesson is hard, but it is pure. Respect does not rest on smiles or sacrifices. It rests on necessity, on becoming irreplaceable, on being the pillar others cannot do without. And once you stand there, firm, steady, sovereign, you will not need to ask for respect. It will come to you, unspoken, undeniable, inevitable. From here, the path leads to the conclusion, to stop chasing affection, and to start commanding respect by living as one who needs nothing, yet cannot be replaced. In a world where attention is traded like coins, true strength belongs to those who stand rooted in themselves. Respect is not won by pleasing. It is earned through necessity, restraint, and the discipline to let your presence carry its own weight. When you stop offering yourself too freely, when you speak only with clarity and hold your ground with quiet steadiness, people are compelled to notice. They pause before crossing you. They measure before speaking. That is the beginning of lasting respect. Share your thoughts in the comments with the words, "True respect." And if this message speaks to you, subscribe so we can walk this path together. Remember, you were not made to be ordinary. You were made to be remembered.